the amount of people that started spamming him and saying how, no, this is not the reality, the people aren't there. And I was there in person witnessing a flood of people on the streets of Caracas in front of the National Assembly. And you have a whole street like Oxford Circus, going Oxford Circus all the way to Tottenham Court Road, passing it. Flooding of people, young, old, people that have traveled miles, coming and celebrating and cheering and listening to the speech of the rightfully just inaugurated president. It was just amazing. Like,
we're here for the inauguration of President Maduro. As you can see, the people are out to protect their president. America imperialism have no say in the democratically elected president of Venezuela. We are here, we are anti-colonialists, we are anti-imperialists, and we believe in the sovereignty of the people of Venezuela. Viva Venezuela, viva Chavez! Que viva!
Hi, my name is Fiona Sim, and I am one of the delegates from the Black Liberation Alliance and Venezuela Solidarity Campaign, who went to the World Anti-Fascist Festival in early January. And I'm here with my colleagues and comrades, Miriam and Sarah, and today we'll be just talking you through a little bit about our experiences as sort of young people from Britain on behalf of the Black Liberation Alliance and Venezuela Solidarity Campaign. So just a bit of background before we get into it. President Nicolas Maduro, he won the election in July of 2024 with a 51.2% share of the vote, a result which was ratified by the Venezuelan National Electoral Council, as well as various other independent observers and bodies recognized by Venezuela and recognized internationally as well. Over 1,000 international observers came to observe the elections. There's been a lot of fanfare in the news about fraudulent elections, but for the people who actually went there themselves, they found a very, very different reality. The United States and its allies were calling for Nicolas Maduro to recognize what they believe to be the quote-unquote correct election result right up until the polls closed. And then they were insistent that their candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, a member of the opposition, had won, even though the results at the end of the election poll showed completely otherwise. It was then at this point that claims of irregularities, election fraud, was accused of the Venezuelan government. Of course, in true US style, this led to a wave of electoral violence. Street barricades were set up in all the different cities. Burnt tires and other debris were used to block all the major roads and highways, completely cutting off certain areas of Venezuela from each other. And since then, thankfully, the situation has been completely calmed. Things have returned almost to normal over the past few months, of the past 6 months, in the run-up to the presidential inauguration. However, since the elections, the United States, the European Union, Britain and Canada have again joined forces to ramp up the sanctions regime on Venezuela, which has already taken a massive toll on the people, the actual real living people who live there and work there and have their entire livelihoods and families there. And this has also included passing the Bolivar Act, which basically affirms all the previous executive orders in relation to Venezuela, including all the unilateral illegal sanctions on the state. In regard to the opposition, Gonzalez signed a document recognizing the authority of the Venezuelan Electoral Council and changed his mind very quickly before fleeing into exile. In recent months, he's traveled to Argentina, he's traveled to Panama, to Guatemala, trying to cozy up to the more right-wing allegiances and the more US-friendly countries within Latin America, which has caused a lot of tensions between some of the more socialist and left-leaning states within the region who do not recognize Gonzalez as the quote-unquote rightful president. This harkens back to what happened in the previous elections when Juan Guaido, a member of the National Assembly in the opposition, also claimed to be the president of Venezuela, and the Bank of England froze Venezuelans' assets in golds as a result, refusing to recognize him ever since that day. A $15 million bounty was put on the head of Nicolas Maduro, calling for his arrest. And this was placed by the United States. And on the inauguration day, this was then increased to $25 million to whoever could somehow arrest the legitimate president of Venezuela and deliver him into United States hands. And yeah, so I guess that takes us right up to today, where we'll be talking a little bit about Maduro's inauguration, which happened just a couple of weeks before Donald Trump's. And it was, I would say, a complete contrast to what we've been seeing this week and what we've been witnessing this week in terms of the theatrics involved in the United States. And the sanctions regime has had so much of an impact on the everyday people. But thankfully, we got to see another side to Venezuela, the resistant and resilient side of Venezuela and the Venezuelan people. So just for a bit of context, the World Anti-Fascist Festival was a direct outcome of the International Congress of Anti-Fascists back in November time, where international delegates around the world met for the inaugural sort of meeting and launch of Venezuela's new sort of status as the anti-fascist headquarters. And the World Anti-Fascist Festival was specifically designated to occur around the same time as the presidential elections due to the right-wing elements that were due to come out in force against the presidency. Miriam, Sarah, could you tell me what was it like in the streets? Did you see any of the opposition? What was the mood like whilst you were there?
As soon as you walked into the conference center, you see pictures of revolutionaries showing on the screen, like Chavez. Over 1,000 delegates were in there at the festival with people from Latin America, all across Latin America, Costa Rica, Cuba, Brazil. You have people from Africa, you have people from countries like the IS, countries like Guinea-Bissau,
The
Caracas.
feeling was the same feeling that they must have had in 1920 in Baku after the aftermath of World War One, in the context of rising European communism and its general neglect for decolonization, when the delegates from colonized eastern countries were welcomed to Baku in Azerbaijan to discuss building decolonial worker consciousness uprisings. Or maybe it was similar to how it was in 1945 in Manchester when there was a Pan-African Congress, the fifth one, where they recognized the demands of the indigenous people of Tunis, Algeria, Morocco, and Libya. Or it might have
Doing
been
great.
similar to how it was in 1955 in Bandung, Indonesia, where they met up to align against colonialism. Or maybe it was similar to how it was in 1966 in Havana, where they had a tricontinental conference and discussed decolonization. I think it follows that legacy, and I am glad to say that I was there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was as you so laid out, it's like the atmosphere, the revolutionary spirit, witnessing people that were from Venezuela, from across the country. The first day, first night, we were able to go to the youth encampment, which is, a park in Ali Primera Park, a park as big as Burgess Park, full on young people that travel up and down the country, across Venezuela, basically come in and encamp just to be ready in case there is attacks from the far right. It's just young people like secondary school, university students, young people that are far from all across work of life, all of them coming together to protect their democratically elected president. What was very striking to me is they call him he's the president of the youth. He's the president of the young people, and that to me was just astonishing. The joy, them around, all of us sitting, delegate from across the world with people from Venezuela, young people from Venezuela sitting across a campfire where we all sing revolutionary songs, Latin revolutionary song, that would, that talk about the politic of socialism, talk about the politic of what is Chavismo, talk about Cuban revolutionary, and it was, the struggle of the Afro Latinos. It was absolutely amazing to witness, and in contrast to what you see here in the UK, where we are silenced, young people are demonized for just having like communist ideology or socialist ideology and things like that. So it was absolutely amazing to witness where, 15-year-old, 14-year-old, 17, 18, all of them coming in one room to sleep day in and out outside in a camp. It was just absolutely amazing, and it was a buzzing spirit to be there.
Since you asked about the opposition, I had the pleasure to, well, not go to the rally, but to see them, small groups of mostly white people, I think, walking away from wherever they were to Burger King, and that's where they were congregating. And yeah, we talked to them, we asked them, how was it? Was it safe? It was safe. Did anyone bother them? No one bothered them. So I don't know what they were talking about. Apparently, people get kidnapped. Apparently, by the state is what they say. But from what I saw, they were unbothered by anyone and happily walking to Burger King or walking home.
I think that's a really good point you touched upon there because around the time when we were there, we were getting all these links sent to us, all these headlines sent to us about Maria Machado. She's like a Venezuelan politician and a very prominent sort of opposition leader in Venezuela. There were all these headlines saying that she'd been kidnapped, that she'd been arrested, that she'd been detained, all these sort of like really, really almost like fear-mongering headlines about how the opposition was being sort of squashed in Venezuela and not by the polls, but by the state forces. So obviously, a lot of us we read into this a lot. We were searching for sources, sort of like hour upon hour, and it turned out in the end it was all made up. It was never a factual sort of element to begin with, and I think that's sort of what I experienced personally in terms of the opposition. Their presence felt very much online and very much on TikTok and social media circles and arenas that were very much offline and where lots and lots and lots of people could shout as loud as they want and circulate as much disinformation as they wanted. And Western media, whether they intentionally fell for the trap or not, they ended up picking up on these headlines and reporting them back as truth. But this was very much not the truth of what was reflected on the ground. The entire time when I was there, I never saw a single member of the opposition. I only heard of them through stories from other delegates like Sarup who had seen them.
Yeah, like I think like this is the first time where I've actually witnessed what really fake news does, and the propaganda of imperialism, the power of imperialism of communication. Because I remember in the inauguration, I one of my comrade from back home, Senegal, was sharing about like, yeah, solidarity to the Venezuelan president has been inaugurated, whatnot, whatnot. And then the amount of people that started spamming him and saying how, no, this is not the reality, the people aren't there. And I was there in person witnessing a flood of people on the streets of Caracas in front of the National Assembly, right opposite Casa Miraflores, the president's home. And mind you, the president home were wide open for everyone to access, for everyone to be able to use the toilet, for everyone to be able to sit down if they need some rest, for everyone to be able to grab a bottle of water if you want to drink. And you have the whole street, like Oxford Circus, going Oxford Circus all the way to Tottenham Court Road, passing it flooding of people, young, old, people that have traveled miles, coming and celebrating and cheering and listening to the speech of the rightfully just inaugurated president. It was just amazing. Like, aside whatever your view are of Maduro, whether you agree or not, the people have chosen, and the people have shown that they have chosen. And that looking at Twitter on X, and you look at all these people, look, there's just a tiny people protesting. Everyone is scared. Nobody's outside. And while I was just across in the supermarket with some delegate, all of us buying like whatever chocolate snacks and all of us sitting out having like, and I'm like, wait a minute, what do you mean? This is not the reality that I've witnessed. So it was really, really interesting to see the power of and sadly a lot of the people that are in the West that are not connected, that don't have the chances to be in certain spaces or just don't want to do the due diligence. Sometimes it's just ignorance they want to have. Um to witness it, it was just absolutely astonishing and it was incredible. Yeah.
No, thanks, Miriam. That gave me some, it linked back to, I think, what Sarah was saying as well about the demographic of the opposition and how it was mainly like white Venezuelans. Even the pictures I saw online, it was white Venezuelans. Could you both tell me a little bit more about the demographics of the inauguration of the Venezuelans as well as the international delegates present?
Oh, there's black people, indigenous people, brown people, just happy Venezuelan people, as well as people from, I think they said 125 countries, such as socialists, communists, Pan-Africanists, Burkinabe people from the AES, people from everywhere and every demographic was well
Yeah.
represented. I just want to mention that two flags that were also prominent there and deserves special recognition is the RBG flag, red, black, and green Pan-African flag, and the Wepala, the Abya Yalan
Yeah.
Wepala, and those were lovely to see. And there was loads of Venezuelan people coming up to me and saying bienvenidos Venezuela. And yeah, it was very welcoming.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just to echo that, it was like during the inauguration, like mainly like a lot of black people, lot of like the Afro Latinas were very prominent there. Not only the youth, but also like you know, older people. I remember there was this group of ladies. I was a bit tired, so we were dancing together, and then at some point I was tired. They were like, "Oh, come have a sit down here." Then the song Chavez en el Corazón del Pueblo came in, and they all started screaming and got up and started dancing. This is like, this like grandmas, right? Like old, like yeah, our grandmas basically and aunties, and they like started dancing, and then one of them turned around and looked at me and said to me in Spanish, "Oh, Miriam, the only man that we love more than our husband is Chavez." And then she kept going dancing, and it was like it was so amazing. And I was like, and you can see the Chavismo, and next to her there is like a young girl, and dancing as well, and like singing her heart out about like Chavismo, singing her heart out about like the hope they have with Maduro. It was absolutely just amazing. And you don't see that. You see like young moms with their babies. Another thing that I really witnessed as well is the queer community is, because Venezuela, like next thing after Venezuela, after socialism, is the fact that they pride themselves being a Christian country, a very religious country. But what I've really witnessed also is a very liberal country where witnessing like queer people being openly fine, and in a country that, pride themselves about being Christian and stuff, it shows the advancement of the mentality and the love, because everyone that you speak to as well around like the politics, they're like we want joy, we want people to live in peace, and we want people in to live in joy, and ultimately that's the hope they have for Maduro presidency, clearly.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. And I think one thing that I still remember is on the way to the actual inauguration celebrations in Miraflores, we went past our bus was our bus was moving very slowly because there was all sorts of sort of like security protocols and everything naturally, and there were so many people out in the streets. But we sort of went through this huge, huge, huge motorcade, like this huge Chavista motorcade. It must have been thousands and thousands of people, and I'm sure they'd been there since the early hours. of the morning, but they were all revving their bikes, they were riding together, they were waving their flags, singing songs, waving at us as we passed from the bus, because they clearly knew that, oh yeah, these must be the international delegates, because we literally came from all around the world, and we didn't look at like a typical Venezuelans, but we were met with such love and openness, and it was just really, it just made us feel so welcome, and it was just a really exciting place to be, with all that energy, with all that spirit, revolutionary spirit. We also heard whilst we were there that there was a huge fishing encampment that had come from all across Venezuela, all the rural areas, and they were camping out in one of the stadiums with and the minister of the comunas was also staying with them throughout that entire period. And it's just so amazing how even the ministers of the government are out there camping with the people. The youth minister was there at the encampment, I think, for all the days it was there, encouraging people, talking to people, finding out where people had come from, and really sort of like raising people's energy and raising people's spirits and showing that they were there, not just for the people, but with the people. And I think that's something throughout the entire celebration you could really see and you could really feel it with all the people on the streets, all the young members of the PSUV, the Socialist Party in one of the socialist parties in Venezuela, that's governing at the moment. They were also ecstatic every time a new song came on, every time Maduro said something inspiring. I could just see the looks of joy on their faces and the emotion actually in their eyes when, certain things about the impact of US imperialism and Venezuelan solidarity and how hard Venezuela had been fighting, for its right to survive and thrive in this capitalist sort of hegemony that's run by the United States. And you could really see how much it meant to them that they were able to celebrate. And so just being there and being able to experience that with them was such a huge, huge privilege.
During that same bus journey, I was just looking out the window, just the amount of street art, and this is stuff like indigenous leaders and African rebel leaders, like from Palenques, pictures of Chavez, pictures of Fidel, just pictures of Bolivar, street art, clearly done by not people with resources, not sponsored by anyone, but done by the people to paint pictures of people they admire. And I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, like when you talk about the street art, it just remind me because we the little trouble we went to San Agustin, which is a barrio and is
Afro-Venezuelan barrio.
yes, is a Afro-Venezuelan barrio and is a barrio that actually, is self-like sufficient. It's like there is no policing there, it's self-police. And again, when you go there, it's absolutely incredible. The arts that you see on the streets, like it was around 1 a.m. and kids were out like playing basketball, teenage girls were out, like the way we are, all like little makeup and dress up and going out with our friend to chit chat. And you see also like the boys on the other side playing basketball. And there was music on the street, people dancing. Even the decoration, as you said, you can see it's not like sophisticated decoration. You can see it's like a recycled material they use and like, make their own lantern, make the colors, making the graffitis. And yes, and full of graffiti of like, Pan-Africanist resistance, like Afro-Latinas and indigenous people that have like been part of the resistance. And it was absolutely beautiful. Um, they revolution and their resistance is done with you see it throughout the city, but you see it throughout the way of living and how they carry themselves through music, through art, through everything they do, their food and so on and so forth is absolutely beautiful to witness. The militancy of young people, for me, that's my biggest strike. Like that's the biggest thing that I can come out of it and witness.
No, 100%. I think I still remember just seeing and hearing all the Spanish chants or the Spanish versions of the Free Palestine chants, like from the river to the sea, the people united will never be defeated, and just every time, someone, there were a lot of Palestinian delegates on. Who who attended as well, some from Palestine, some from Jordan, some who were studying in Cuba. And every time they waved the flag, you would see like the MC or the people around them start chanting Free Palestine. And it was also reflected in the artwork. There were so many beautiful murals of revolutionary Palestinians with their keffiyehs, and slogans about like unity and solidarity. And I think that's just such an important thing for us to see and experience as well, is that the impact of like that international solidarity, across countries, cross continents, cross politics even. And I guess it's also just what makes it so heartbreaking to know that the very real impact of these sanctions on the Venezuelan people. So we've touched a little bit upon the sanctions that were placed in Venezuela around the time of the inauguration, and a lot of it actually happened whilst we were there down on the ground as part of the celebrations. Do you remember where you were when you found out about the sanctions or read the articles that had just popped through with the headlines? What was your initial reaction? Like, how did you reconcile that with what was going on, and what you were experiencing whilst in Caracas?
I was not very surprised that the colonial countries of the metropole were behaving like colonial countries of the metropole when faced with a people's government that wants to use the resources of the country for the benefit of the people of the country. They did what I was expecting them to anyway.
It was quite astonishing because I remember I was inside Miraflores taking a bit to cool myself down, and I started laughing because I find it very ironic and funny because the people are out here like celebrating. They knew this will happen. They were just like, I remember talking to somebody and they asked me where you're from, and I was like, oh, Reino Unido. And he was like, oh, and then we started talking about the sanction, and it was like, oh, it's okay. We will be fine. We will fight and we will resist. We have each other. And for me, that strikes me of that just to show the resiliency of the people. But in another hand, that show me also like what is my role to play in making sure that also we hold our government accountable, because at the end of the day we do live in the global north, in the belly of the imperialist beast. So therefore we have our role to play in making sure that solidarity is shown to the fullest, and we hold our government, imperialist government, accountable. And is making sure that we share what we have seen and learned here, but also fully organize and mobilize and unite, and making sure that we do like we do our organizing that can bring material change to the people in the global south.
So the sanctions, there was also sanctions against individual people, and they were pretty important people to the revolution, probably, I'm guessing. So I didn't get to talk to them, I guess. But in addition to this badge of honor that was given to them by the Western imperialists in the form of sanctions against them for the good that they've been doing for their people, they also got medals from Maduro. So I'm sure they're happy about these sanctions. They've been doing something good, and it's been recognized not only by the enemy but also by the leaders of the revolution. So
Yeah, they were inaugurated the closure of the festival, Anti-Fascist Festival, and Maduro gave an amazing speech there, and all those people that were individually sanctioned by the EU, the US, and the UK were given honors and medals by Maduro, and you can see the cheer of the that like for the from the national delegate, but also for the international delegate is sorry about my language, but it's a big fuck you in a way, um to them, because your delegates, your people are here, and I'm honoring the people that fought for the liberation and were ready to lose everything for the liberation of our country. So it was really amazing to witness and being part of it.
I think one of the most brilliant parts for me was sitting in that audience and yeah, just sitting in that audience and seeing that people started getting out of their seats when Maduro started talking about the opposition and making a few jokes about the opposition, and then before you knew it, the entire sort of room all got up and they were all chanting in Spanish. What was it? Edmundo is scared. Edmundo is scared. Edmundo, where are you? Where are you, Edmundo? And it was just the most hilarious thing because it really was just laughing in the face of the fascists, like laughing in the face of the imperialists, being like, look, you tried. You really, really, ramped up your presence online. You started visiting all these presidents in Latin America, just, really flaunting your arsenal of influential people. But in the end, Maduro got sworn in. Maduro was accepted as the legitimate president by the people. And even there was what was his name? Daniel, the president of Nicaragua.
Daniel
Uh,
Ortega.
yeah, Daniel Ortega.
Daniel
He was there as well.
Ortega.
And he gave a beautiful speech of summing up the very, very vast history of the region and lending his support to the sort of Bolivarian revolution, which I thought was just, yeah, it was just super cool to see like history happening before your very eyes. And I guess moving on to just sort of like to summarize our trip, what do you reckon was the highlight of your trip, of the delegation to Venezuela?
Well, the event itself of the inauguration was great, but the way the on the bus traveling to the event, that motorcade, just being in there and just seeing the love that they have for the Bolivarian revolution and being literally in it and surrounded by it, it was absolutely amazing. And those murals, yeah, that were excellent. And yeah, it's just the love that the people, the poor people, the Venezuelan people, just the love they have for their revolution. I really, just in that one journey, I saw more than, I saw more truth than you will get if you read about Venezuela all day on any of these Western media. They don't show that, do they?
No, never. And Miriam?
For me, the highlight is the people, the youth, you know, how politicized they are, how committed they are, how ready they are, and the love they have for their revolution and the country. Like on the day-to-day basis, all you see people wear is the t-shirt with like the flag of Venezuela, the little jumper with the flag of Venezuela anywhere you go. And it shows love, it shows craziness, and it shows how knowledgeable they are around like imperialism and how he shows himself. Like you stop a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, you can have a great, amazing political conversation with them. And to me, that's absolutely amazing. And people like that, you're not about to, imperialism not about to win over them by any means necessary. They are ready to protect their freedom, their country, the Chavismo, and what does that mean for them? So yeah, and just being, as what Sarah said, like just being there is inspiring. Because when, I work in housing, for example, when you look at, the social housing, when you go visit the comuna, you see how the comuna work, how the people are a community, are a unit, and they are there for each other. Not They are not trying to profit of each other. It's just like we are working together for us, all of us, to have a decent life in peace and with alegría, like they like to say, right? So for me, that was just like amazing to witness, and yeah, the celebration and the commitment.
Yeah, I think I echo both of those completely. So now, since I have to say something different about my highlight, I guess for me, I think it's the forward-looking nature of it all. Just that when we went there, and for Miriam and myself, this was the second time we'd been fortunate enough to visit Venezuela. But it's never, each time, I've never felt like it's the end of something, that it's just, a one quick trip and then we forget about it forever. Like there's always this feeling, not just an abstract feeling, but actually in the people themselves, how they talk to us. It's like, we'll see you soon, right? We'll see you soon. We're gonna see you in Venezuela again. We'll see you in your country again. The next thing is coming. So I remember one of the attaches, one of the people who was sort of like helping us with the events, he was like, "We'll see you in March, right? We're going to see you in March." And in March, actually, what Maduro announced on at the end of the World Anti-Fascist Festival as part of the closing was that they are kicking off the what was it? The Anti-Fascist Feminist International. So it's a new initiative as part of their anti-fascist sort of campaigns. Another sort of initiative that's come out of the congresses that were held last year. And there's going to be meetings not just around feminism and the plight of women, the struggle of women within sort of like the class struggle and revolutionary struggle, but there's going to be meetings of people from all the different religious sectors. There's going to be meetings for all the people of indigenous descent in Venezuela and around Latin America. There's going to be meetings for all the legal jurists and legal experts in the world to figure out what is the best way to defeat fascism from a legal and a lawful standpoint, as well as so many other sort of different things that were announced. I think was it like a training camp is going to be happening in March, like a 2-week youth anti-fascist training camp, as well as just so many other things. And I think there's a piece in the Morning Star about it by one of our comrades who went as well, where he details all the different things they'll be doing. So I think for me, just the fact that there's so much to look forward to, there's so much to be optimistic about, you just can't help but go away thinking that, like, no, we can't. Why would we even begin to think about giving up or feeling hopeless or falling into a pit of despair at the world when you've got people in Venezuela on the ground living in conditions imposed upon them by the US? That means their quality of life has been purposely squashed, squandered, sabotaged. But we here in the West, what do we have to despair about? We don't have the right to despair when people all around the world are as resilient and incredible and resourceful as they are with whatever resources they can scrape together. So it's filled me with like a renewed sense of energy, and I think that's my favorite thing about Venezuela and coming back is that I just feel so motivated and ready to go and ready to, as Miriam was saying, do my bit and figure out where my
Just
responsibilities lie.
waiting for Maduro's signal.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, it was, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is just the start. And this compared to Trump, where now everyone is like, we're sad with this, with that, is like, yeah, it is completely different. And there is hope. And we're just getting started in our organizing and how do we fight colonialism and imperialism ultimately. And yeah, absolutely. Come back, coming back really pumped up and ready to take on the world. That's how I feel.
Exactly. And I mean, as you were saying, like Trump, he's already said that he's gonna cancel any oil contracts that currently exists with between the US and Venezuela. So we can see the imperialists, they're lining themselves up behind Trump to do not just his bidding, but the bidding of the ruling class of the world. So we've got to be ready, right? Um, and yeah, solidarity is just more important now than ever. So Venezuela Solidarity Campaign, it's through them that we've been able to have this incredible opportunity. And we've been able to learn so much and speak to so many people with so much knowledge about the country and about the anti-imperialist efforts. As you can see, Sarah's waving the little leaflet there. So please, 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 if you're watching this, join Venezuela Solidarity Campaign. Check out all the great work that they've been doing, and have a look out on their socials for more sort of highlights and clips from the recent trip to Venezuela, as well as upcoming analysis of what's going to be happening politically and what we should be prepared for as people who are in solidarity with Venezuela and Venezuelans, including petitions, potential protests, and calls on Britain to end sanctions and return the gold rightfully to Venezuela, to the people that actually own it. But any other sort of closing thoughts, Miriam, Sarah?
Yeah, just echo what Fiona said. Join. And also if you are Black, Arab, Asian, if you're African, Arab, Asian, Caribbean, Indigenous, Afro-Latina, please join BLA, look at our social media, and yeah, join VSE is needed. The solidarity can only go up from here.
Sarah, any last words? Closing words, should we
Um,
say, not last words.
yeah, when's the next time? That's what I want to know. Yeah, I don't know. That's it.
No,
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
amazing.
When
Yeah.
is the next time? That's a good question. That's a good question. Thank you so much for tuning in to this little report back on our trip to Venezuela. And yeah, solidarity and hope to see you all soon.
La luta continua.